What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and I am here today to do my preview video for the Buffalo Bills game that is on Sunday at Hard Rock Stadium. So it's our first home game, our home opener, and it's going to be a tough game. Hopefully we do have a little bit of a home field advantage, not just with the crowd, but also, you know, the heat. It's supposed to be pretty hot out there on Sunday, so hopefully we can get that going for us. But it is going to be a tough game. This is a tough team. I think they are going to look to rebound from their tough loss to the Steelers. And again, I think people, you know, if you watched my scouting report video for the Bills, I think people are overblowing the loss that they took to the Steelers. That defense for the Steelers is elite on every level. You know, from the front to the back, and they have a really good offense too. So, you know, there's that. But yeah, so let's get into it. So I'm going to talk about the injury report. I'm going to give you the updates there. Obviously, there was some unfortunate news for the Dolphins this week, both on the offense and defensive sides of the ball. So we're going to get to that. I'm going to do a quick depth chart comparison, and then I'm going to go through league standings, how each team did in their previous game, and do a little comparison there. And then, you know, take a quick look at the quarterbacks and how they're performing on the season, and then do my keys to victory. So let's go ahead and drop me down, make me little, so we can take a look at this injury report. So first and foremost, every player does not have a game status designation, although, as you can see, Will Fuller here is a non-injury related personal matter. Unfortunately, he has been downgraded to out for the game because of that personal matter. And there's some reason to believe that he may even be contemplating retiring, which there's two sides to this for me. There's the personal, you know, side or whatever, like the human side of it, and on that side of it, I get it. If he's, you know, if he feels like it's time, you know, then, you know, I support his decision, because whatever personal matter he has that he feels like, you know, he needs to take care of or whatever, you know, that comes first, right? So from that aspect, I understand and I get it. But from the football aspect, from a fan, from the team aspect, and so on and so forth, it sucks because, you know, he was our big acquisition over the summer, right? And in the off season, he was you know, we've been expecting him to come in and make an impact for this team at some point after he served his suspension, etc., or whatever, right? And it's a major hit to this wide receiver core. Not to mention we're paying him $10 million this year, right? Like, so now obviously, you know, some things would change in that regard if he were to retire, but, you know, we just spent all this money to go get him, and then especially with the way that they, you know, quadrupled down on that position group, right, at wide receiver, and overloaded us there when we, you know, definitely desperately need help, like, I don't know, on the offensive line or whatever. So that is a major loss for the Dolphins, and we don't know yet if anything, you know, we don't know a long term. So let me be clear about that. There's just been rumblings about him potentially retiring. There is nothing definitive on that yet. And so as of right now, he's going to miss the Buffalo Bills game, and that's it. Brian Flores didn't really give any information when he was asked about it. Not a surprise there. So, you know, it is what it is, man, but it sucks. So down goes one of the wide receivers, and it's not even to injury. And then also, of course, on the other side of the ball, we all know that Raekwon Davis got put onto the injured reserve list, and he's going to be out for at least 3 weeks, which obviously includes this game. So both the offense and the defense took pretty major hits with those two things happening. But otherwise, you know, it looks like everybody else should be good to go. Pretty much everybody was either full, you know, there was some limited participation in there, but everybody was full for the most part. Adam Shaheen, Andrew Van Ginkel, Preston Williams, Clayton Fedulum, John Jenkins, Devontae Parker, and Landon Roberts. I mean, it is concerning, though, that, already to start the season, guys like Landon Roberts, Devontae Parker, John Jenkins, Preston Williams, Andrew Van Ginkel, Adam Shaheen. It is kind of unfortunate that this early in the season they all do have injuries that they are nursing through, because these are all super important guys. I mean, we can't afford, especially with Fuller now going down, we can't afford to lose Parker or Williams, right? With Raekwon going down, John Jenkins is that much more important. Our linebacking core is already thin enough as is, so Landon Roberts and Van Ginkel, right? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, but at least everybody's ready to go for this game minus those two guys. For the Bills, as you can see, nobody has a game status designation except for 3 players who are listed as questionable, but you would expect that probably means that they're going to play. And a lot of these guys, you can see even are just listed as vet rest. So like Mario Addison, Cole Beasley, Stephon Diggs, and Jerry Hughes, right? So a lot of these guys don't even really have injuries. But then other than that, Gabriel Davis, Star Lotulelei, Isaiah McKenzie, Matt Milano, Emmanuel Sanders, Micah Hyde, Jerry Hughes, or not Jerry Hughes, I already mentioned him, and F.A. Obata. And a lot of these guys, obviously, out of the vet rest, the guys that are not, held out for vet rest, you have Micah Hyde, who's really important with a neck injury, right? Matt Milano with an ankle, Isaiah McKenzie with a shoulder, Star Lotulelei with a calf, Gabriel Davis with an ankle, right? So those are all really important guys, and obviously things that we will need to monitor and keep an eye on as the game goes on. All right, now let's do a quick depth chart comparison. So, just real quick, obviously we know Austin Jackson is coming back. Then it's Kinley, Dieter, Hunt, Davis. Look, you guys know how I feel about this offensive line. I would take the Buffalo Bills offensive line over ours in this matchup. So, if I was making a little amalgamation team, I would definitely take their offensive line over ours. I know that they struggled against the Steelers, but again, they have an incredible pass rush, really good linebackers, and they're an elite on all levels. So, and we don't have as good a run game or a pass rush as the Steelers. So, and I just think that their offensive line is better. When it comes to the wide receivers, so real quick, take a look at theirs. They have Deion Dawkins, John Feliciano, Mitch Morse, Cody Ford, and Darrell Williams. As far as receivers goes, they have Emmanuel Sanders, Gabriel Davis, let's see, Cole Beasley, Stephon Diggs, Isaiah McKenzie, and Jake Kumaro. That includes all the backups, obviously. But they have a really good wide receiver core. And, I mean, we just lost Will. I was going to say, originally going into this game, I was actually going to say that I think it's a relatively even wide receiver core. Except we don't have a Stephon Diggs, who I think is the best receiver out of all of them. And I'm not sure we even quite have, a reliable third down guy like Cole Beasley. But overall, I think that the wide receiver cores are pretty similar in overall talent and, potential production. But losing Will Fuller really does hurt for us. So, but I'm still going to call that pretty even. Both wide receiver cores, I think, are really good and certainly could, put up some numbers and stuff like that over the course of the season. So provided, but the big difference though is that our wide receivers are very banged up all the time. Although to be fair, I guess they have a few, Emmanuel Sanders and Gabriel Davis, Isaiah McKenzie, all those guys are on the injury report. All right, moving on. So now running backs. They have Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, Matt Breida, Tywan Jones. And then, of course, we have Myles Gaskin, Malcolm Brown, and Salvon Ahmed. Devin Singletary's solid. Zach Moss isn't bad. Matt Breida seems to be falling off at this point in his career. I'm going to take our running backs over theirs. They have a fullback listed too, Reggie Gilliam. I'm going to take ours over theirs. When it comes to quarterback, though, they have Josh Allen, Mitchell Trubisky behind them. We're just going to focus on Tua versus Josh Allen. Look, unfortunately, right now, as much as it pains me to say Josh Allen's going to win that battle. So in this little, amalgamation team for offense, I would have taken Josh Allen with their offensive line, but our running backs and then the wide receiver cores are pretty even. If I had to lean one side, it probably would be the Bills just because of the presence of Stephon Diggs. And especially because Will Fuller is going to be out for us. So if I was going to lean one way, I would have to be to them. All right, real quick, defensively. So on the defensive line, we obviously have Emmanuel Ogbah, who I really like, Raekwon Davis, who's not going to be there, Christian Wilkins, who I have, believed is underwhelming and needs to prove that he was worth that first-round pick. Adam Butler, John Jenkins, and Zach Sealer got some solid depth there. For them, they have Greg Rousseau, who I actually did like coming out of college. Ed Oliver is pretty good. Star Lotulelei is a really good defensive tackle, but we don't know if he's actually going to play yet, and he didn't play last week. Jerry Hughes is a good defensive end. And then A.J. Epineza, Vernon Butler, Harrison Phillips, Mario Addison, with Boogie Basham, Justin Zimmer, and F.A. Obata. So they have a lot of guys behind the starting defensive line. Man, I'm going to have to honestly, and I hate to say this, but I'm going to have to take their defensive line too, because I just think that they're a little bit more proven. Obviously, Greg Rousseau's a rookie, but Ed Oliver, if Star Lotulelei were to play, Jerry Hughes, I think these guys are just a bit more proven, so I'm going to take their defensive line over ours. When it comes to linebackers, we have Jerome Baker, Landon Roberts, Andrew Van Ginkel, Brennan Scarlett, Sam Egravon, Duke Riley, Jalen Phillips. To their Tremaine Edmonds, Matt Milano, who I love that tandem in the middle there for them. They're really good. They obviously have a 4-2-5 lineup, as you can see here, though. And then Tyrell Dotson, A.J. Klein, solid backups, Tyler Medikevich, and Andre Smith. Overall, the linebacker core for me is a bit worrisome for us. So I'm going to take their linebacker core with a slight edge. I'll go ahead and say right now, I'll take our special teams over theirs. I'm going to take our special teams over pretty much every team because we have a really good special teams unit. And then the secondary, though, they do have a really good secondary, I believe. Teron Johnson is the nickel corner. Tre'Davious White is obviously really good. Levi Wallace, he's all right. He's not a superstar, but he's solid. And then the safety tandem is probably one of the best in the league with Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. And then you have Saron Neal, Dane Jackson, DeMar Hamlin, and Jaquan Johnson as their backups. And of course, for us, we have Justin Coleman, Byron Jones, Xavier Howard, Jason McCourty, Eric Rowe, Elijah Campbell, Noah Igbenogany, Nick Needham, Javon Holland, Brandon Jones, Trill Williams, and Clayton Fedulum. I'm going to take our secondary over theirs. But they do have a really good secondary, and I think that out of all of the secondaries that we're going to face this year, I think this one against the Bills probably has the best chance to lock down our wide receivers, especially considering a couple of them are nursing injuries. Will Fuller's not going to be out there, et cetera, et cetera. So, but yeah, and look, I do have a concern with our offensive line going up against this Bills defensive line, especially if Star Lotulelei does play. I'm not convinced that we're going to have much of a run game because, they just, since last year, and up to this point so far this year, we haven't had one. They're not very good at blocking in the run game. So, there's some concerns there and everything. But yeah, let me go ahead, though, and switch over to my game preview template here. Because I do now want to start getting into that. To get a little bit more detailed context here for these teams and what we're talking about. So like I said, it's going to be a tough game. It's going to be, look, at the end of the day, I'm going to get to my prediction at the end, but I do think the offense will pick it up a little bit. I do think they're going to score a bit more than they did last game. I think this game is going to be a bit more high scoring than our previous game. But at the end of the day, um, I don't know, man. I don't know if we're gonna be able to keep up with Josh Allen and that offense. So, all right, let's get into this. Dolphins obviously start off the season 1-0. Bills are 0-1, and that is because, um, we won, they didn't, and we're at the top of the division for the first week. So it's beautiful. Obviously, we're gonna have to wait and see how this week plays out. A win would be fabulous and would really give us a good commanding lead to start the season. A loss would obviously tie us in record, and they actually would then have the tiebreaker over us for now, right? So and so if we win, then we also have the tiebreaker over them at the beginning of the season, and we currently hold the tiebreaker over the Patriots. All right, so just real quick, just these little arrows here, because you're going to see them pop up throughout my league standings. But to explain that, up arrows mean an increase in any particular stat. Down arrows, or their league standing. Down arrows mean a decrease in a particular stat or their league standing. These little sideways arrows mean they didn't go anywhere. So you'll see that a lot when you see the league standings, because it'll basically say, last week we were 15th in this statistic, and this week we remain the same. So jumping down here, though, you will see I have a comparison of the Dolphins will always be on the left-hand side. The opposing team will always be on the right-hand side. For the Dolphins, I do their previous, what they were prior to, and then what they are currently. Same thing with their league standings, and then I just give you what the current league standings are for the opposing team. So I know that may seem a little confusing. Obviously, you can see here I have total yards, yards per game, total passing, passing yards per game, etc., etc. But so since last week was our very first game, we obviously started with 0 yards in every category because there was no games played until we played our first game. And then here you will see our stats increased with the green upwards arrow. Green, by the way, means good. Red means bad. The direction you do not want to go in if it's red, or you do want to go in if it's green. And for the first week, total, the total numbers and the yards per game numbers are going to be exactly the same, because obviously you can't get an average, or the average for one game is going to be the total, right? They're going to be one and the same. So hopefully that was, not too confusing of an explanation, but I think you guys will get the idea as we go on, and I'm sure you guys can just figure it out from looking. So real quick, as I mentioned, these are going to be the same for week 1 because there's no averages yet. There are no multiple games played. That will obviously change after this week. So in yards, total yards and yards per game, we obviously started off with 0, but after week 1, we increased those totals to 259. We didn't have a rank prior to rank 1, so there's currently an NA, but after week 1, we ranked 27th in total yards and yards per game for the offense. The Bills, on the other hand, they have 371 yards, and they ranked 21st in both of those categories. Total passing, the Dolphins went from 0 because there was no game up to 202 after the first game. That puts us at 27th in the league for total passing and passing yards per game. The Bills are at 270, just a little bit more than us, but that puts them at 18th overall. In rushing yards, both total and yards per game, we went from 0 to 74, and that puts us at 25th in the league. The Bills had 117 in their first game, which puts them at 16th. And so, as you can see here, just head-to-head matchups in the league standings, the Bills have an edge over us, except for total points, but they are just behind us with the 1-point difference. We had 17 points in our first game, which puts us at 23rd in the league, and they had 16, which puts them at 24th. Defensively, so in this case, I do not have this is just the yards, passing yards, rushing yards, points per game. I'm not doing totals for the defense. That's just an offensive statistic, but then obviously the defense has some unique statistics of their own. So defensively, yards per game, after the first one, we are at 393, which is 17th in the league, and they gave up 252, which puts them at 3rd in the league. Passing yards a game, we had 281 so far after week 1. That puts us at 17th. They are 4th with 188. We gave up 125 rushing yards in the first game. That puts us at 18th. They gave up 75, which puts them at 10th. Points per game, though, we gave up 16, and that puts us at 8th in the league. They gave up 23 to the Steelers, which puts them at 14th. Takeaways, Miami has 2 after the first week, which gives us puts us at 9th in the league. They didn't have any turnovers in their first game, and they're ranked 25th. Now, again, just for clarity, right, because with takeaways, interceptions, fumbles, especially right now in the early portion of the season, there are going to be a lot of teams that are tied technically, right, with 0 or 2 or what have you, and so it just kind of depends. Their overall league ranking just kind of depends on where they happen to fall onto the list. That obviously will get much more clear as the season progresses. Interceptions, Miami didn't have any. We are at 24th in the league, and this is a clear example, right? They didn't have any interceptions either, but they are at 15th, and so that is where the disparity between 15th and 24th lies, but we are technically tied for like 3rd or something like that, right? Because I think the most interceptions that any team has is like 2, maybe 3, so which would have us tied for like 4th, but then, whatever, you get the point. So fumbles, the Dolphins have 2, that puts us at 4th in the league. The Bills have 0, they're at 18th on that list. Sacks, the Dolphins had 1, that puts us at 27th. They had 2, that put them at 15th. And passes defense, Dolphins had 5, that puts us at 12th. They had 6, that puts them at 6th. All right, so just a quick comparison of how each team did in their previous game. This is us on the left side against the Patriots. This is Bills on the right-hand side against the Steelers. We had 259 total yards to their 371. We had 185 passing to their 254. We had 74 rushing yards to 117. So again, as you see from head-to-head matchups, they kind of have an edge there in that regard. Obviously, there was some statistics here that we had an edge in, fumbles, for example, right? So, it's interesting to see. I like these comparisons. It obviously gets so much clearer once we get into the, middle of the season, especially with the league standings. But we did beat them out in yards per play. We had 5 to their 4.7. We didn't have any fumbles. They had 1. We threw 1 interception to their none, right? So they beat us a little bit on third down conversion rate. They had 44. We were at 36. They blew us out of the water in time of possession, though, by about exactly 10 minutes. We had 23-17 to their 33-17. And penalties, we did better than they did in that category, our 5 to their 8. So quick little quarterback comparison. And this is, for this, I'm going to leave this as their season total stats, right? So how each quarterback is doing for the season. So obviously it's just one game, but as of right now on the year, Tua is 59.3% completion percentage for 202 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and a 79.6 passer rating. And you can see Josh Allen actually through the first game is pretty much the same thing. I mean, they're super close in completion percentage, 58.8. He is a bit higher in yards at 270. They both have just 1 touchdown, and Allen doesn't have any interceptions yet, but they're almost identical in passer rating with his 79.7. So, like I said, after week 1, they are actually pretty close in their stat lines. Okay, and so keys to victory for this game, because like I said, it's going to be a really tough game. I think that the Miami Dolphins are going to end up scoring more points than they did last week. I think that even though this is a tough defense, I think that they could, get some pressure on us, because that offensive line scares me. And I do think that they have, good enough pass rush that they can, cause some problems back there. And I do think that the secondary of the Bills does match up pretty well with our receivers overall, especially with Will Fuller being out. So there is that. Raekwon Davis being out is a concern. For being able to shut them down. We don't really have much of a run defense or a pass rush, but we do have a really good secondary. And obviously so it's going to be a tough game. I do think the Dolphins ultimately are going to score more points than they did last game against the Patriots. But again, I'm not convinced yet that we are really ready to compete with the Bills. And go toe-to-toe with them, and I'm not sure we're going to be able to keep up with them on offense. But at the end of the day, if the Dolphins do want to win, these are some of the things that they need to do. So on offense, for me, the offensive line has to protect Tua and open up running lanes. They have to have some semblance of a running game. They cannot allow too much pressure. They need to give him some clean pockets so he can at least be able to step up and throw, that sort of thing. Don't let guys like Greg Rousseau or Jerry Hughes get into the backfield. 2, they need to do better with the play calling, right? And they need to go more to this offense's and Tua's strengths, and that is the RPO and the up-tempo type of offense. And then 3rd, they have to play some clean football. They can't have costly mistakes, penalties, or turnovers that kill drives, that set them up with good field position, etc., because otherwise they are just going to rip into us. Defensively, we absolutely, the number one thing is we have to contain Josh Allen in the pocket and get pressure. We don't want him to be able to scramble out, because he's actually pretty good at that, extending plays and so on and so forth. And obviously, he's really good with his legs. I actually do expect him to be their leading rusher, which is unfortunate. And the Dolphins do historically, until proven otherwise, have a tough time with mobile quarterbacks. So that is going to be the number one thing, is contain Josh Allen in the pocket and get pressure. Also, try and force some damn turnovers, man. Whatever it be, whether it be, an interception or two, maybe, Xavier Howard jumps a route or something like that, or just gets a great one-handed interception because he's so sticky in coverage, whatever, right? Or maybe they just punch a ball out and get a fumble, something, man, or a strip sack would be lovely, right? Get a turnover, win the turnover battle, right? And then finally, play tight coverage and make your tackles. And this actually kind of goes into the number one thing, because again, if Josh Allen does break out of the pocket, you can't get bowled over by him. He's a big dude. He's pretty physical. And, last year we saw him, now obviously Kyle Van Noy's not here, but we saw him truck stick Kyle Van Noy and put him into the dirt, right? But our linebackers are not very big. They're fast, but they're not very big. So, those dudes kind of play into each other, but play tight coverage, shut down those receivers, don't let them be productive, and then make sure you make your tackles. All right, and finally, for my prediction, I'm going to go ahead and make myself big here for this part, because I know you like to see my pretty face. But for my prediction, like I said, ultimately, I think the Dolphins are going to score a bit more than they did last week. A full 10 points, in fact. So I have the Dolphins scoring 27 points. But I don't think they're going to be able to match up with the Bills. I think they're going to have a hard time keeping up with that offense. And I think that the Bills are going to come away with it. Until the Dolphins can prove that they can hang with the expected division leader and a team that has Super Bowl aspirations this year, and with Josh Allen playing, really good football in the latter portions of his career, the more recent portions of his career, obviously not, last week notwithstanding, because of the elite defense he had to go up against. But, they got to prove it, man. Now, again, it is home field for us. Hopefully the crowd and the heat will play, an advantage for us. But we do have some pretty concerning people being out with Raekwon Davis and Will Fuller. So it's going to be a tough game. I do think they're going to win. I think it's going to be a 35-27 Bills win. It's not going to be too crazy. That's just one score. Obviously, a touchdown with a 2-point conversion because it's 8 points. But, you know, at the end of the day, I think it's going to be tough, man. It's going to be tough, and hopefully they can come out with it. Hopefully they, like I said, hopefully they can stick to those keys to victory. And if they do, they play good, clean football, then they definitely have a chance. There are going to be some opportunities. And so hopefully that is what we ultimately see. I would love to be wrong about this, and I would love to be able to not just, you know, have the Dolphins go 2-0 and take a you know, a much more commanding lead within the division. Obviously that. But I would also love to be able to upgrade my win total on the year to 11 wins, and, you know, have more confidence that this team actually can, you know, live up to that kind of record and make a push, you know, into the postseason. Now, again, just one more thing. Finally, just for context, of course, my biggest issues with this team are the offensive line, the injuries, and COVID situation, because they've obviously been pretty detrimental to us to this point. And then depth, man, and how's the depth going to be able to hold up as injuries do mount over the course of the season? So, all right, guys, with that, that is my preview preview video for the Miami Dolphins versus Buffalo Bills at Hard Rock Stadium. And I hope you guys appreciate my perspective. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. Of course, as always, follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Fins up.